And once again, it's my happy privilege to welcome you all for this online class. And I invite all the 7th standard A1, A2, A3 students to attend this online social science class. And today we are moving on to Unit 3, Part 2 of Unit 3 in History. And the title of our lesson is Emergence of New Kingdoms in South India, later Cholas and Pandyas. And in last class, we studied about part 1, that is the emergence of Chola kingdom and their decline. And in continuation, we are moving on to the next topic, that is administration. So, what is the meaning of this particular word, administration? Administration means it is a management, control, authority to a certain territory. Every institution or an organization has their own administration. So there could never be any group or community without administration. For example, even take our school. In our school, we have administrative department, isn't it? So in that department, there will be principal's office, then treasurer office, cashier office. Okay, so what is the purpose of these offices? They control or they manages the entire function of the school. So likewise, in the same manner, the Chola Empire also practiced a form of administration to have control over their entire kingdom. So in Chola administration, the king was the head of the administration of the Cholas, and all the powers were concentrated in the hands of the king. So king is the supreme authority in the Chola Empire. So the king gives verbal orders to the people. Okay, so the verbal orders were given by the king, and these orders were drafted by his secretary. Drafted means copied, written by his secretaries on a palm leaf. Then finally, immediately they will initiate the orders, and finally they will copy them in the walls of the temples. Okay, then the kingship was hereditary in nature. What is the meaning of this word? So, only the immediate blood relation of the king will be the next ruler of the Chola Empire. No other personality could become king for the Chola Empire. Only the blood related people of the king's family will reach the throne of the kingdom. And more specifically, the eldest son of the king will be the next king. So, what the king will do whenever his elder son grows up, they will call them Yuvaraja, that is the prince, and he will place them as a governor. The king will place the eldest son as a governor in one of the provinces, mandalams of his empire, so that the prince, the Yuvaraja, will get knowledge about how to control the kingdom. Not only the eldest son, in fact, all the families of the king will be employed in one of the mandalams throughout the Chola Empire. Then finally, the empire was divided into four important divisions. They were province or mandalams, nadus, kurams, and gramam. So first the whole empire was divided into mandalams. Then further the mandalams were divided into nadus. Then further the nadus were divided into kurams. And finally the kurams were divided into villages. Like how we have in India. Our India is divided into different states. And further states were divided into districts. Then furthermore, districts are divided into municipalities. So likewise, the Chola kingdom also had their own divisions so that administration could be easy for them to control the whole empire. So these are the some of the important points under the topic administration. Let's move on to the next topic, local governance. So far we studied about the central administration, central governance. Now we are going to study about the local administration, that is the control of the local people. So under the topic local governance, there were four important divisions are found. Okay, let's see one by one of them. The first one is Ur, Sabha, Nagaram, Nadu. All these four are the territories, the land forms, the borders in which the people were segregated, in which the citizens were segregated. Okay, so in Ur is a territory, it is a place where farmers practicing agriculture will live. So in Ur, there will be farmers practicing agriculture, and along with the farmers, there will be landlords. The owner of the farmlands, they control the farmers. Okay, so these landlords were called Urar. Okay, then the next territory is named as Sabha. So Sabha is a territory or a boundary or a place where only the Brahmins lives. So the Brahmin community were given a separate territory which is named as Sabha, and the community of the Brahmins were called as Sabayar. And the third division is Nagaram. So in Nagaram, there will be traders, people who are involving in business, buying and selling goods, and skilled artisans, skilled laborers, skilled trainee technicians such as masons. Mason means the people who involve in building purposes, goldsmith, weavers. Weavers are the people who stitches clothes. Then potters, making pottery. These people were placed in the territory called Nagaram. So the community of the people living in Nagaram is known as Nagarathar. And finally, the last division is Nadu. So in this division, there will be a community of people named as Natars. And these Natars, they decide all the disputes and problems and issues pertaining the Nadu. So what all the problems and issues happening in that particular Nadu, all those problems will be resolved by the Natars living in Nadus. So these are the four important local governance body which comprise the local peoples of the Chola Empire. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is Uttaramerur inscriptions. So Uttaramerur is a renowned temple town in Kanchipuram district. So in this district, in this particular place called Uttaramerur, there were many temples. And in one particular temple, on the walls of the temple, there were inscriptions written on them. So in one of the temples found in Uttaramerur, there were inscriptions. So these inscriptions gives informations about the election of members for the ward members election informations were written on them. So according to these inscriptions, the ward members will be elected through Kudavolai system. So what is Kudavolai system? In this system, a large pot will be placed in the middle. So all those who are participating in the election, the candidates names will be written, and all the names who are competing, who are contesting in that election, their names will be written and placed inside the pot, and the elderly man will call a young boy or young girl and ask them to collect one name. So whatever name collected by that small boy or girl, that particular person will be selected as ward member. So likewise, in Chola Empire there were 30 wards, and 30 ward members were selected through this Kudavolai method. So there is eligibility. Not all people could compete in that contest. There are some eligibility. You need some qualifications to participate in that election. So what are those qualifications? First, the contestant must be the local citizen. He should be a local citizen, and he should own some land, and his age should be between 35 to 70, not less than 35 or not more than 70 years of age. And also he must have the knowledge of Vedas and scriptures, and also he should not get involved in any kind of illegal activities, any theft or any activity which is against the rule of the government. So these are some of the qualifications to compete or contest in the post of ward members. Okay, so the Urithramerur inscriptions gives informations about the election process happened in the Chola kingdom. Let's move on to the next topic, that is revenue. What is meant by revenue? Revenue means income. So how the Chola Empire got income? What is the source of income for the Chola Empire? So the revenue mainly came from the land tax. So the primary income for the Chola Empire is through land tax. So the land tax was also known as Kani Kadan. So the land tax was also known as Kani Kadan. So what they did, the Chola rulers carried out an elaborate survey of land. So they carried out an elaborate survey of the land in order to fix the government share of the land revenue. So they surveyed all the cultivable agricultural land in order to calculate the tax to be given by the people. So 1/3 of the produce was collected as land tax. See, for example, if in a farmland, in one particular farmland, there were around 30 bags of wheat or 30 bags of paddy were collected in a farmland. So among these 30 bags, the farmers must give 10 bags to the government. So this is the system followed by the Chola Empire to cultivate the income. And in addition, not only land tax, in addition to the land tax, they also taxed on profession and tolls on trade. Some profession, people having some profession, they also paid their tax, and also tolls. Traders passing through the highway, they also needed to pay revenue to the government. So these are some of the important points about revenue. Let's move on to the next topic, that is social structure based land relations. So in the Chola Empire, land system was divided into 3 types. So what are they? The first one is intercaste population. So all the intercaste people belonging to different caste, but they practice agriculture, they were grouped in one kind of one type. So these people who belong to different caste live in a particular place, they pay tax to the government. So the second group is Brahmadeya villages. So these Brahmadeya villages were granted to the Brahmin community, not to other people. The Brahmadeya villages were the villages granted to the Brahmin community freely by the king. So these people lived in Brahmadeya villages freely, and they need not to pay any tax. They were given exemption from tax. So the Brahmin need not to pay any tax to the government. Not only the Brahmins, even the ministers from the royal family, they also need not to pay tax to the government. So the Brahmins became more prosperous comparing with the other community peoples. And the third system of land is Devadana, that is land given as granted as gift to God. So for temple, so the king will donate some lands to the temple. They will gift some land to the temple. So these land were uh, were bought from the revenues from the villages who donated to the temples. So these Devadana lands were they gained more popularity because time to time there were more lands offered to God by other people, and these lands were maintained by the officials related to the worship, related to priestly work. And apart from these three types of land system, there were Vellanvagai lands which belonged to the Vellalas. So these Vellalas were the agricultural people. They practiced agriculture. Not directly, there was a subdivision among this community. They are called Ulukudi. So Ulukudi is a subdivision of Vellalar community. They directly involved themselves in cultivating land, cultivating um, farming in Brahmadeya and Vellanvagai land. So these Ulukudi people are the farmers who cultivate crops on the lands of Brahmadeya and Vellanvagai. So when they cultivate the crops, the harvest will be, majority of the harvest will be taken by the Brahmins and the Vellanvagai Vellalar people. Only a smaller portion of the produce of the crops, grains will be given to the Ullugudi cultivators. Okay, they were slave people, they were ordinary people. They do not own any land, only they work in the land. So these are the structure of land relations in the Chola kingdom. Then let's move on to the next topic, that is irrigation. Irrigation means feeding the crops with water, feeding the farmland with water. So the Chola Empire was very much highly involved in agriculture. Since they were their geography is in the midst of the delta region, it was very, the land was very fertile and it was much fitted for agricultural practice. So irrigation was a very much needed support for the Chola Empire. So the irrigation system was divided into two parts. One is natural water source. The other one is artificial water source. Natural water source is the water which we get from the rain, in the form of rain. Artificial means the water stored in wells, through the wells, canals, then water stored in the tanks. They are called artificial system. So the king Rajendra Chola, he built an 16-mile long embankment in the river, in the Gangaikonda Cholapuram. in the river Kaveri in Gangaikonda Cholapuram. So the embankment is around 16 mile long, that is nearly 25 kilometers long embankment. Okay, then the irrigation system, the water facility, they followed a tradition called Vadi Vaikal harnessing system. So harnessing means controlling the flow of water and making use of them. Harness means controlling the flow and make use of them. So this is the type Vadi Vaikal is the type used by the Chola kingdom. So what is mean by Vadi? Vadi means drain. Vaikal means supply channel. So they used two different channels. One channel is named as Vadi and the other channel is named as Vaikal. So what is Vadi? The water which is passed on to the farmland, agricultural land, when they become excess, when the flow of water is excess to the farmland, they were drained into a channel called as Vadi. Vaikal means it is a supply of water which directly flows into the farmland. So two means, one channel they takes away, they collects, they stores the water, excess water in a storage system. Other means they supply the water into the uh, farmland. So this is called Vadi Vaikal system, draining and supplying channel. Now let's move on to the next section, that is religion. So the Chola Empire, they were the ardent Saivites. Ardent means they were much eagerly patriotic in passionate, highly passionate in Saivite. Saivite means worshipping Lord Shiva. Worshipping Lord Shiva, we call them Saivites. So they were passionate, very much interested, eager in worshipping Lord Shiva. So Nayanmars. So the Nayanmars were the poets that composed hymns in praise of the deeds of Lord Shiva. So they composed songs in praising the works of Lord Shiva. And all these hymns were arranged in a right manner by a poet called Nambiyandar Nambi, and these arranged poems were named as Tirumarai. Okay, then let's move on to the next topic, temples. So the Chola period witnessed an extensive construction of temples. So no other kingdom in southern part of India were very much involved themselves in building many temples. Okay, so the Cholas were very much involved themselves in constructing many temples, and there were some example temples. The temples built in Tanjore, Gangaikonda Cholapuram, they were the repository, they were the reason, they were the high storage of architecture. Repository means highly stored, highly stored of architecture. Architecture is the uh, building condition. Then sculpture, carving of the idols, paintings, coloring the idols and the building. These are the greatness of Chola art. Okay, the temples not only promoted worship, they also promoted education and devotion forms such as dance, music, and dramas also practiced in temples. Okay, not the secular dance, music, and drama, it is based upon the devotional dance regarding honoring God, music about God, and dramas relating to epics. So these things also were promoted by the temples. There were temple staffs. So these temple staffs including the dancing girls, musicians, singers, players of musical instruments, and the priest. All these peoples are staffs of the temple, and they earned their livelihood through the income came through temples. Let's move on to the next topic. Cholas as patrons of learning. Patrons means highly, eagerly, passionate, very much interested in learning. So the Cholas were very much interested in learning process. Okay. So the king named Rajendra Chola first. He established a Vedic college at Ennairam in mm, Vedic college at Ennairam, a place which is in Viluppuram district. So in this place there were around 340 students learning Vedas, grammar and Upanishads under 14 teachers. So at Ennairam College of Vedas there were 340 students studying Vedas, Upanishads and grammar under 14 teachers. So what happened? This was an example for the later successors of the Chola kingdom to found two more colleges. So the successors, the kings preceded, the king succeeded Rajendra Chola I. They built two more colleges in place called Tirubhuvanai, which is in Puducherry, and also Tirumukkudal, which is in Chengalpad district. So these are two more colleges established by the kings followed after Rajendra Chola. So because of these colleges, there were two important literary works done during this period. They were Periya Puranam and Kamba Ramayanam. So Periya Puranam and Kamba Ramayanam were the great epics which were found during the Chola period. Now let's move on to the final topic, which is trade. So there were a highly flourishing trade during the Chola Empire. So the trade was performed through two guild groups, guild-like groups. Guild means they were corporate communities that works as that forms a group and works in a systematic manner. So these two divided groups were named as Anju Vannathar and Mani Gramathar. So the Anju Vannathar is a group, is a guild which performs trade with the West Asian countries, Arabian countries, Jewish people, Christianity and Muslim people. And Mani Gramathar, they followed the internal trade, inland trade, that is trade among the territories inside India. So these are the two important guild, that is corporate community functions as a group. Okay. So because of this flourishing trade system, the Chola Empire, they traded with southeastern countries and they imported some goods such as elephant tusks, corals, transparent glasses, betel nuts. Okay, you all know what is elephant tusk, isn't it? The tusk of the elephant. Corals, you all know, isn't it? In the sea water, small rocky substance. They are called corals. Then transparent glasses, glasses through which you can see. Then betel nuts, the nuts which were used for uh, chewing purposes. And finally, the Chola Empire exported some of the things that were the sandalwoods, ebony. Ebony is a type of uh, wood. Okay, it was a hard wood. Then condiments. Condiments means the things which adds taste to our food. For example, salt is a condiment. Then pickle is a condiment. So these are some of the condiments. Precious gems, pepper, oil, paddy, grains and salt. These are some of the goods that were exported to the other countries and other parts of India. So, so this ends information about the Chola kingdom. So children, go through these lessons. So next class we are going to study about Pandyas. Till then, it's you. Bye from your social teacher. Bye.